Hello, Revision, and everyone here at Brixel Hackerspace in Hasselt, Belgium. My name is 104, and I want to give a small demonstration of my musical instrument called the Clarinoid, which is like a self-made electronic clarinet, EWI sort of thing. Well, anything self-made, we don't really know how to define them sometimes. But first, a quick shout out to the folks here at Brixel in Hasselt for hosting this. This is an amazing hackerspace, super cool. I just got the tour and they're excellently equipped. And we have open boxes and everything and all the technology available to make all of this happen. I'm very impressed. And I'm only a bit sad to miss a bit of the compos, but that's fine because we can replay that stuff. Yeah, so that was a short demonstration of the Clarinoid, and here I can talk a little bit about how it's made and why I made it and all that kind of stuff. I do want to kind of fly through it. I don't want to bore anyone with a bunch of details, so if you have questions, please feel free to reach out somehow. I know that there's the seminars Discord or Slack. Is it the Discord? Okay, so on Discord, at the demo scene Discord, there is a revision seminars channel. Feel free to add your questions there and we'll try to get them if you have any questions about what this thing is, how it works, how I built it, or anything else. So yeah, the Clarinoid, it's a MIDI polyphonic synthesizer that's breath controlled and uses a lot of touch capacitive sensors and a breath pressure sensor for the breath and a lot of software in it to make some sounds. It took a lot of effort to make this thing, as you might know if you've ever endeavored in something like this. So the big question is like, why would anyone go to this amount of ridiculous effort to do this? And the answer to that is that, well, I play a lot of instruments. I play a lot of keyboards. I play a lot of flute and other like kind of wind instruments like trumpets and tubas and stuff. They all have their characteristics, their positives, their negatives. For example, flute is great for expression and for playing great melodies, but well, it doesn't play that low and it can only play one note at a time. And any piano player will know that if all the piano players know that there's a big limitation with keyboards, and that is that once you hit the key, you can't really control the sound anymore. So the only thing you can do is just lift up your finger and the note is over, and that's the whole end of the story. Unfortunately, the world of synthesizers is pretty much dominated by keyboard style controllers, but yeah, being like a brass and wind instrument person, I really wanted a polyphonic instrument that was breath controlled and that I could play sound and actually crescendo sometimes. So for example, this is something you cannot do on a piano. Oh, can I play a note? This is already something that's impossible to do on a piano or a keyboard, so that's it. This is the second one I've made. The first one I made is really like prototype style, just like, you know, hot gluing stuff together. I was amazed that it would even work. So then I decided to improve it a bit. I made this one. I do have another one that I want to make because this is still missing some features, believe it or not. But I'm not quite good enough yet to do the third one because I need to get like custom-made PCBs and stuff. I'm not quite there yet. Speaking of not being there yet, just some notes about the hardware. So this thing is really from like Brixel, the like plumbing department, figuring out which pipes they have in the fittings and how could I do the wind pipe and stuff. So most of this stuff is from Brixel. All of the electronic components though are, well, it's mostly powered by a Teensy, which is like an Arduino on crack. It runs at like 600 megahertz, and that allows it to have a built-in onboard synthesizer. Battery powered, so the whole thing is self-contained. I just have an audio jack here. It's not running through like a synthesizer, anything like that. Everything is on board. There are 14 touch capacitive touch sensors, by the way, to control the notes. A little bit more about this. It does have a screen as well. It's probably not visible by there, but I did put a photo in the slides. So there's a little 128 by 64 OLED screen with a full like menu system. I'm gonna just breeze through these photos, but again, all the questions, throw them in the Discord. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, so to look at the instrument itself, the object itself, it's hard to see really what's going on. Everything's kind of like crammed together and shoved into this pipe. But on the slide, I show like a little bit of a breakaway. This is like the front of the instrument. I'm gonna like raise this up so we can see both at the same time. There we go, over there. This is the part I blow into. This is the other end. And on the slide, we're seeing like if I pull out that panel, there's a whole bunch of, well, it's just a big jumble of wires actually. So I'm gonna move on. There's a battery in there too, an 18650. Here's all those parts labeled. I'm not gonna hold on too long on this slide. There's a lot of stuff in there, but it's probably not even readable on the stream, I don't know. Trying to see if there's something I wanna point out there, but not really. There's a MIDI out. It's a mini jack. And then there's another mini jack, which is an audio out. So I always have to remind myself which is which, but that's the beauty of these kind of things. On the other side of the instrument, so that was down here. This photo is up here by my left hand, and it shows like the octave keys. There's a whole bunch of octave keys. They're all just touch sensitive. Yeah. My right hand down here has 4 touch-sensitive keys. My left hand has 4 touch-sensitive keys on the top, but on the back, there's 6 kind of rollers. You probably can't see them, it's a little too small, but there's touch-sensitive rollers that control the octave. Maybe I'd demonstrate that one actually. So I'm gonna play the same note, but I'm just gonna move my thumb, and that's these kind of round things you see in the slide. Hold on, remove the... That's it. And then there's also the pressure sensor is also up there towards the top of that thing by my mouth. So as you might be able to see, it's all hand soldered and just using kind of this prototype board stuff. And kind of getting all that shoved into a tiny space like this can be a real pain in the butt. That's where most of the work was, I think. Well, that's where half of the work was. The other half was these sons of bitches. I don't know if, yeah, okay, I see. It's almost a little emotional to see that. Learning the part numbers of these damn things, because for me, when I started this project, I'm like, these little connectors, just 2 wires, you just plug them together, right? That's like 2 parts, right? Part number 1, part number 2. But it turns out that there's so many parts and so many variations of those damn things. They're like, what's the thickness of gold you want? It's like, man, is that important? And then I find myself researching. It turns out it's important, but. So the thing is that for me, I'm not a hardware guy, and all the hardware stuff was a learning experience for me. It's the first time I ever made anything like this. I think I started with Arduino, and I was like, okay, but I want the synths to be on board. Arduino can't quite handle that at 16 megahertz. That's why I moved to the Teensy, and then all of a sudden, like 2 years later, I have this in my hand. Mostly I'm a software guy, and so my whole strategy was like, we're going to put this thing together like Legos, just solder wires together, and all the fancy stuff I'll just do in the software. So there's a GitHub repository with a like shameful amount of code that goes into this thing for the menu system, for the kind of multitasking scheduling system, and for of course, the synthesizer and all the little features that go along with that. All the audio is done in 16-bit and yeah, 128 sample audio buffer and stuff. Everything's kind of on a fixed multitasking schedule that runs at 60 frames per second. I'm gonna try to stop myself getting too into details because as a software guy, it's easy for me to get deep into that. There are a whole bunch of menus that are kind of hidden because they're just facing me and they're very, very tiny on this little screen. But I did want to point out that there's there's synthesizer patches, like different synthesizer patches. If I could like demonstrate maybe one or two of those. The default patch is like this one. And then, of course, there's other stuff like a pulse width, like a square wave thing. Maybe one more. The pan flute. Okay. And then there is also some other features. It's like a loop station on this, but I'm not going to demonstrate that because honestly I forget which button does that. But there is a whole bunch of harmonizers as well. So that's where the polyphonic thing comes in, because I wanted a polyphonic synthesizer, not just another electronic clarinet. And for that, I'm often finding myself using this harmonizer where there's kind of algorithms that, you know, and that's the power of software, right? It's like, I'm playing this note, I want to use this scale, and I set up all these different algorithms, and then you can play. Okay, so it's a certain kind of polyphony, but it's polyphony nonetheless. It also has FM synthesis and all sorts of other modulation options. But again, I don't want to get too much into it. There is a diagram here of how everything is like Legoed together, but again, I don't want to get too much into it. The gray stuff there are all the buttons, basically, like the hardware components. The blue stuff are digital components. And that's it. So that's my little musical instrument. I do have a band actually that we play with this thing. We have a concert coming up next month in Brussels. Otherwise, I just want to open up to questions if there's any questions about it, about the Clarinoid. Maybe from the folks here in the room with me at Brixel.
Does it work with 7-jam?
What's that?
Does it work with 7-jam?
It does work with 7-jam, yeah, because
That's the time question.
yeah, product placement. Yeah, so in case you were watching the mainstream yesterday morning from 11 to 12, my other pet project is 7jam.io, this online jam session software, which you can connect a MIDI device to, and that connects all my big projects together into one. So yeah, 7jam supports like MIDI CC modulation, and so you can easily plug this into the computer and play 7jam through this thing.
Have you ever tried plugging MIDI out into something to control it with Clarinoid?
Yeah. I have used the MIDI out capability. It's a bit more basic. I mean, when you put the MIDI and the synthesizer in the same device, you get some advantages. You know, you get like better signals and better synergy between all the different signals and things. So I prefer to just use the built-in stuff and not use a outboard synthesizer, but it works well. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to build? Because I saw this Vision 3, and how long did it take you to develop this one, for example?
Yeah, so how long did it take to develop? The first one was like a bit of a prototype, and it's hard to say. Maybe like, let's say 2 weeks of kind of planning and figuring out how I'm going to do it, and then maybe 2 weeks of building it. This one was probably a bit longer, maybe more like 2 months of occasionally thinking and drawing stuff and like, oh wait, how do I squeeze that into that area and all this. I spent way too long on certain things. I think you know the feeling, right? Like the dumbest things will take an extreme amount of time, like these octave keys. And I know that, yeah, Cecile, my girlfriend, she's probably also traumatized from me talking about these stupid things, but it's like the ergonomics of this make it especially challenging. Anything that has to like connect to the body becomes like an extreme challenge, and the smallest details will be really very annoying very quickly. Or like how to attach this strap to this thing, or like the fact that it's like top heavy is really annoying. So that's like something to fix for next Clarinoid 3. But this one was probably 3 weeks of planning and then 3 weeks of building, which is why the next version I'm a little scared of, because I have a few things that I want to fix, and these projects tend to ramp up exponentially in the amount of effort and time they take to make.
Do you intend to collaborate on your new revision with people who are more specialized in probably making boards, and or do you want to keep it as an...
Yeah, so do I want to collaborate more in the creation? I would prefer to collaborate because I don't know any of this stuff, and I know that if for the next version, I really need to get custom PCBs built in order to squeeze more stuff into a small area and probably just improve the thing overall, make it more efficient, etc. So yeah, fortunately I'm at a hackerspace called Brixel, and I think I found some folks who might be able to give me some good advice. I think for the software, I like to keep that for myself because that's my like deep passion. But for the hardware, I need as much help as I can get. I spend way too long on something that I think if I just asked the right person, it would be solved immediately. Yeah.
Maybe a little demonstration from more play.
Sure.
Just a small jam.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe fine.
And then we can run the controls.
Kill the microphone.
Yeah. Ooh.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you very much. So yeah, if you want some occasional slightly relevant updates, you can follow me on Twitter. The thing is right here, Twitter/1042. Well, that's confusing because there are 3 numbers and you don't know which ones are spelled out. Doesn't matter. There's also the code is available if you want to browse a very strange pile of spaghetti. GitHub.com/then4. It's not a typo. /Clarinoid. Or if you have questions, whatever, you can email me, carlco@gmail.com. Huge thanks to Revision. Huge thanks to Brixel, who's hosting all this stuff and doing really cool stuff. I'm excited to get back to the compos, so thank you.